Welcome,
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah, yeah.
Welcome to the Collectors Room. Uh, I'm Gary Getz. I'm the co-founder of the Collectors Room and your co-host for today. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us. It's great to have you. We're looking forward to spending the next hour with you. Thanks for taking an hour from your busy days to be with us, and we're going to do our best to make it more than worth your while as we introduce what we believe is a really exciting new concept in watch community and watch education. And we'll go into that in more detail. But first, Oliver, I'll ask you to say hi to folks and say a few words about yourself.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Oliver, and I am also a co-host of the Collective Room. Today, I'll be working a little bit more behind the scenes, making sure that this event is running seamlessly. And then if you have any questions, feel free to drop them below in the chat section. Also, there is a Q&A section, and I'll make sure that at the end of the webinar, I'll address as many questions as possible. All right. So, Gary, could you start off by telling us a little bit about what we're going to be telling everybody?
Okay, today's agenda. We've had introductions, obviously. I will do a quick wrist check. I am wearing the first watch I ever bought myself, which is a Bucherer chronometer from 1972. It still runs, and I'll invite everyone who's on the call to hold up your wrists and simultaneously shout what you are wearing. So we won't go around the room because obviously we can't do that on a webinar. But let me hear what you're wearing. Oh, very good. All right. So we'll give a little background on ourselves. I'll talk about me a little bit. Why is it that I'm your host? That friends of mine suggested to me that we start this up and that I be the focal point initially. Very importantly, talk about what needs we see as being unmet today in the world of watch community and watch education. Clearly, there are a lot of things out there. There's a lot of information, but as we talk with people, we've heard that there are a lot of pain points and things that people wish they could do that they can't do yet. And so that's why we've developed the Collectors Room to meet those needs. We'll talk in some detail about how we think those needs are met. And then a big element of the Collectors Room is the idea of education. And we're starting out with a 5-chapter educational course on the topic of collecting specifically. And as you enroll to participate in that course, you'll be a member of a cohort, a group of people who start at the same time, who go through the shared experience of learning, discussing, interacting on the forum, and forming what we hope will be long-term relationships. And then finally, we'll come back around to specifically what you get by joining the Collectors Room and the mechanics of how to join today. As we talk, please spread the word. Please feel free to take a screenshot of what we're doing here. Share it to your Instagram stories or wherever you'd like. Our Instagram handle is, I have to look around my little camera, _collectors room. Website is thecollectorsroom.net. If you can multitask, feel free to do that as we go. If you're like me, and you can only do one thing at a time, feel free to do that later. But spread the word and get other people involved.
Yes, definitely. Well, Gary, since you're the main host, I think everybody came here to hear your voice and hear you speaking more about the Collectors Room. So why don't you take us through your story and maybe a little bit more background on who you are and why you're even the host this thing?
All right, so I don't know if you've had the same experience, but anytime you see someone interviewed, particularly men, I think, but maybe women too, they say, "How did you get started with watches?" And the answer is, I think, very, very often, I won't say always, but very often, either my father had a watch or my grandfather had a watch. And for me, my grandfather had a watch. You can see a picture of the watch here. I actually have the watch here that I took out for today. You can see it's a pocket watch, enamel dial. It's not a valuable watch at all in terms of monetary value, but it has immense value to me. I was very fond of my grandfather. And he had this watch. This was his kind of, Sunday go to church watch. So he took really good care of it. And just, that the slow ticking of that big balance, I always, fascinated me. And, he would take it out and open it up and let me hold it. And it had a lot of value to me. There's also, if you look at the little watch fob there, there's an old Bible story, I guess, that says if you had the faith of a mustard seed, you could move mountains. And there's a mustard seed in there that he put in there, and it's still in there now. So it's there's just a lot of, and I think this is the one thing about watches, right? Sometimes people say every watch is a story watch, right? Watches should have emotional content. They're not just things. And I think a lot of our interactions as enthusiasts about watches are really about the watches that we have, how we came by them, why we wanted them, and having that richness to the discussion is a lot of what we're going to be about at the Collectors Room. All right, fast forward 40 years. The good news for you is that I am not going to go through. And then on Tuesday in 1957, you're not going to get that. Yeah. So, but in the intervening years, I bought some watches, started collecting probably more seriously in the 1990s with JLC. It's a brand I still own more of than any other brand to watch, and then moved on to a few other brands, Vacheron, Lange, but then discovered the independents through the introductions of some very kind friends, and friendships are really the thing, right? I mean, it's a hobby. There are watches involved, but it's all about the people. And so what we've chosen to show here are some, I don't know if any of you have ever been to a Benihana, but in the old days, if you went into the main room of Rocky Aoki, who was the founder of Benihana, there were like 1,000 photographs in the lobby of Rocky Aoki with famous people. So this is my Benihana moment. Right. So on the left, Philippe Dufour at his 75th birthday party, typically bashful man in his vivid pink suit. The Gronefeld brothers, there I'm taking delivery of a watch from them. At the upper right, Stephen Forsey, the fantastic co-founder of Grubel Forsey and one of the most knowledgeable and nicest guys you'll ever know. And then bottom right, Kari Voutilainen. We were both a little younger then, and you can see from my big grin that he is presenting me with a watch, another special watch for me, which was one of the 6 unique watches, chronographs that our NorCal Gang of 6 commissioned from Kari. And so, I've had the privilege of getting to a lot of people in the industry, a lot of the independent makers, a lot of the great collectors, a lot of the journalists, writers. It's been a wonderful, wonderful journey for me, and to listen to them, to ask them questions, to express my own opinions, to have them tell me where I'm wrong or where they agree with me. And so that's really been, a multi-decade journey of becoming deeply involved in the watch community. And then along the way, it was important for me, personally, to be able to speak out, to write, to express my views, to get people's feedback. And so, there I am at the top left, moderating a panel at last year's Dubai Watch Week. From 2014 forward, I've contributed. Now it's over 200 long form articles to Quill and Pad on a variety of topics. The one shown there is, one of my favorites, where 2017, I asked the question whether Reshepy and Akrivia were going to amount to anything, and I said yes, they would. So, of course, the ones where I predicted something and I was wrong, I won't show you those, but that was a good one, and I'm very proud to have had that association with Quill and Pad. My Instagram, Gary G_1, is pretty popular for watch photography. And I'm grateful to my teacher, Ming Thien, who also has, of course, Ming watches and was a professional photographer for many years. And then I was very honored to be chosen as a member of the jury for the Grand Prix de Genève. in 2018 and 2019, and I still sit on their academy. So you know, to come back around, you know, for those who don't know me, I hope that helps a little bit to explain why you know, I've had the audacity, and friends of mine have told me, you know, maybe it would be an okay idea for you to start something up that tries to engage people and where you share your knowledge about watches and collecting.
Definitely. And that's what we're trying to do here. You know, Gary, when we started talking together several months ago, the original idea from both of us was to do an educational course. But, you know, quite quickly we came to find that there was also a need for a reinvention of the watch forum. So could you kind of take us through why that is and maybe address some of the needs and the pain points that is currently active?
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, because we did talk originally just, well, let's have a course, which would have been fun. And we still do have a course, which still is fun. But as we engaged an advisory group, and I'm so grateful to them, of folks, some of whom I actually hadn't known before, but came to me through volunteering in response to an Instagram post. Some people I'd known for quite a while. It became clear that you know, there are really two fundamental needs in the watch world that people have been trying to fill for a long time, right? One's about educating themselves, about learning. There's so much depth and so many facets to the watch world that people are hungry for information. They want to learn. It's like any hobby that people get deeply engaged in, but I think watches, again, because of the emotion of it, but also because of its complexity and technical complexity, is an area where people really want to dive in. And then community. People want to get to know other people, and in some ways, watches are a little different, I think, than other you know, luxury items or craft items in that way. Art collectors are very solitary people, as a rule. Often the art is displayed in their homes, or it's in a vault in Geneva somewhere. You know, you don't go out to lunch and bring your Picasso to show your buddies, but watches, of course, you know, you go and you meet people, and so people want to connect around watches. It's a natural discussion point, and that need, those two needs have, you know, they persist, but the way that people try to meet them has changed over time. So there are a variety of ways people have tried to serve these needs. Each has its great points, but each has its shortcomings. So you know, from the forums of the early 2000s, like Time Zone, to blogs and outbound journalism, places like Hodinkee, to displaying your stuff on Instagram and having people follow you and comment, to now it's YouTube and TikTok. I promise you that if I'm in this hobby another 100 years, I will never put up a post called "Trying to Buy a Watch of a Stranger's Wrist," but apparently someone did, and apparently it's a popular thing. So I think that's something that the collector's rule will be able to discuss. You know, what constitutes communication around watches? What's happening with, you know, watch, you know, journalism, or watch journalism without the quotes, the air quotes? You know, how do we want to interact about watches? What's popular? Is popularity the measure of what makes sense? And then there are private discussion groups. You know, I'm involved in some WhatsApp groups. There are Reddit groups. There are these other kind of private groups that you can get into if you know people and if they invite you, where you can have discussions about watches. So over time, we've seen this migration. I probably should have also put up the in-person meetings like Red Bar and others, where people are trying to form community. They're trying to learn. They're trying to do that in different ways. But as I said, there are shortcomings. And so, you know, well, what sort? First of all, we think about typical forums or discussion groups like on WhatsApp. They're really flat, right? The medium is flat. It's text only quite often. You know, it's kind of boring, frankly. Too much work. You know, one of the reasons that, you know, the forum has petered out over time is, I like to say, there's no like button on the purists, right? If I want to respond to you on a forum, I have to write a title. I have to write an introductory paragraph. I have to say, gee, I really liked it in paragraph 3. You said blah, 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 blah. You can't just say, hey, that's interesting. I can't give you a thumbs up, thumbs down. I can't give you an emoji. You know, people, they don't want to do that much work. Too outbound, right? So, you know, there's a lot of outbound watch communication, one way, coming from somebody to you that doesn't involve you and your thoughts and your contributions, even if there's a comment section. You know, I have down at the bottom, too superficial, right? A comment section is not a discussion. A comment section is, you know, flash reactions to something, and people don't really engage each other. And if I go back up one, lends itself to trolling, right? So, you know, a barf emoji is not a part of dialogue. And yet, you know, a lot of the comment sections on blogs and online journals has a lot to do with, you know, this sucks, you suck. Who needs that? And too brand centered, right? So even, you know, the old forums, there was a Breguet forum, the Lange forum, a Vacheron Constantin forum, a JLC forum, et cetera, but also brand centered in the sense of being brand driven on the content, right? There's a lot of stuff that's just warmed over brand press releases. You know, I'm sure if you follow the watch stuff at all, you open up your feed in the morning on Facebook or on Instagram, and it's 73 posts about the release of exactly the same watch that happened to come out today, as opposed to something else, right? There are plenty of places to get that. That's not what we're going to be about. Limited educational content, right? Again, there are places to chat and talk. There are places to receive information. But when it comes to really deep educational content from experts, that's something that you can't find very easily. And particularly when it comes to learning about collecting and accumulating and managing a set of watches. There's really limited or no personal access to industry figures. So, you know, yeah, sure, there are things where, you know, someone interviews Max Buser, and they ask him the questions and he tells you about his, you know, his childhood and how that led to him being interested in doing something creative. Fascinating stuff. Max is a great guy, but you're not able to ask him questions. And it's not a group of, you know, 20 or 50 or 100 of us sitting with Max and having him start by addressing a topic you've identified and then having a real discussion with him where you get to have a back and forth. We're going to have that kind of thing. And what that leads to, you know, all these things is really not a sense of community. Really, it's transactional. It's not, there's no bonding, there's no affinity, there's no friendship. Limited focus on collecting. You know, we said, what should the first set of topics be? Well, we could have chosen, you know, the mechanics of watches, how are movements designed? We could have chosen the watch business, you know, how do companies work? We could have chosen all sorts of things. But what we saw was there's a lot of information out there, but there's not a lot. And I think some, you know, a lot of collectors are reluctant to share and to talk about collecting, right? What is collecting? What is a collection? How do I become a collector? How do I manage it? How do I think about it? How do I decide what dimensions are important to me? How do I buy and sell? What are all the different ways? You know, the dirty topic, right? Are watches an asset class? Are they investments? Is it dirty to talk about that? You know, if I think about the money part, because watches are expensive, how do I think about that? We're going to address that here. A lot of the discussion groups, I talked about the WhatsApp groups I'm on. I happen to know a lot of people. Some of them were kind enough to invite me into these private groups, but it's restrictive, right? Unlike the collector's room, right, where you can say, I'm going to join up. I want to be a member of the community. If you don't know people and you don't get invited, you don't get in. So you never know about it. And then finally, you know, other people usually set the structure for what the topics are and how to interact. And a real principle for us is to be driven by you and your interests, that the chat rooms are going to be driven by topics you find interesting, whether that's buying and selling, or whether it's photography, or it could be all sorts of arcane things, watches in the press. You'll come up with it, right? I don't have a complete list because I don't know what it is, but the discussions we have, the video calls we have with the group, and even the structure of the forum itself is going to be built not around the Richard Mille Forum and the Vacheron Forum, but around topics that are really meaty and we can get engaged in together.
Yeah, so we can all agree that we have all these shortcomings and we've addressed these needs and these pain points. I think, Gary, for everybody, the next natural question is, how do we as the Collectors Room then go in and maybe like close the gap of these shortcomings?
Okay, so here's kind of the vision statement, right? It's for the 2020s. I think that's really important, right? It's not your grandfather's watch forum. So it's a modernized, dynamic version, collector and collecting centered reinvention of the online watch forum. 2 pillars: education meets community. That's the thing, right? It's about going all the way back to what was really a cool idea, the forum, that had its flaws and didn't improve over time, and modernizing and reinventing it so that it becomes a way of fulfilling those 2 fundamental needs. All right, so today we launch the Collectors Room 1.0. 1.0 means to suggest that it's really great now, but it's going to get greater. And here's what's in it. First, a 5-chapter video education course that focuses on collecting. What is collecting? Why do we collect? And how to do it, right? So it's not just the concept of a plan. It's actually nuts and bolts about, well, how do I think about buying? Where should I buy? Where should I sell? Under what circumstances? Weekly open house video discussions. So we're going to start those in line with the educational course, where for the 5 chapters, there will be 5 weekly video discussions to talk about that week's topic, but then onward, right? So it's not just, again, a flat forum, or it's not just an online forum on your computer. It's actually real-time video discussions that we're going to have together. Special guest stars and master classes starting immediately. I'll have an announcement in just a few minutes about our first master class and who our first guest star is, and I think you're going to like it. A lively and visually rich discussion forum that's organized around your interests. Since it is a membership group, we believe, and we're going to manage it to be a safe space to discuss watch topics, with no trolling is the goal. We're going to talk about controversial topics, right? I think it's really important that we, as friends and colleagues, that we are able to discuss things that get on people's nerves, or where we have strong opinions that differ. Watches as investments, an obvious topic. Retailer practices or brand practices, another topic. But we're going to disagree without being disagreeable, and we're going to search for common ground. And even if we end up disagreeing, I certainly plan to learn from you, and I expect my views to change and to be enlightened and say, I had thought about that as we go. And then a commitment to continuous improvement. So the platform, I think, is good now. It's really interesting. It works great. We're going to make it better and better. It's going to get richer. It's going to get more flexible. And also, we're going to enhance it in other ways. So I've already talked about the weekly video calls, where we're going to get the group engaged in discussions for anyone who wants to join. But also, we're looking at a number of potential alliances and partnerships, so that we can give access to other things like pricing information or in-person meetups, things that are not really within our scope. God forbid we should try to be all things to all people, right? We're about community and education. But we understand that there are lots of other really cool things out there that could be good adjuncts to what we do. And we're going to be looking to add those as options for you. So I'd encourage you, to think about the value of what the collector's room is and what that's worth to you. So, what's it worth to you to either jumpstart your watch-related network if you're relatively new to the hobby, or to inject some new energy into that network, to meet people that you wouldn't ordinarily come across, but who are just as enthusiastic as the rest of us are. What's the value of that? If you've ever bought a watch that you thought, geez, pretty fast, that was kind of a stinker, and then you end up selling it at a substantial loss, or it just kind of sits in the box or the safe or the bank, and that money is gone and you're not getting it back, or you sell and you say, geez, I wish I hadn't sold through so-and-so, this dealer, or sold at auction, or sold however I sold, because I could have done a better job and I didn't get nearly as much money as I should have. What's one less of those worth to you? What's it worth to you to go from, what could be a nice set of watches to something that is a true collection, something that has an underlying logic, something that expresses who you are and what's important to you, something that has the variety, but also the coherence that makes for a true collection. Interactions with the makers and the industry leaders that we're going to have, that where you get to interact with them, where you get to ask them questions, where you get to hear their responses to what you want to know. Sharing your insights and opinions with a group of people who have taken the time and made the effort to join up and to be active. And I've said this a couple of times, so I won't beat it up too much more, but having conversations that are organized around topics that you and your colleagues find compelling. That's really the value proposition, right? It's all those things that are the features of the collector's room.
Yeah, something we talked about with our TCR advisory group was on how we could have the most effective educational approach. So how could we create a course and a community where it was the learning that we were going to share was easily absorbable? And so I think the next natural thing would be to talk about our cohort approach, because they recommended to us that we start cohorts. And Gary, could you maybe take us through what a cohort is and how that works?
Yeah, one of the great things, I mentioned our advisory group earlier, kind of dumb luck, but really good luck for us, was that two of the members of our advisory group are actually educational designers. And they said, well, if you're going to have an educational course and you're going to enroll people in it as a key element of what you're doing, you have to organize people into cohorts. And I said, okay, I went to school a long time ago, so tell me about that. And cohorts are groups of people who start at the same time, who have a shared learning experience, and as a result, form close relationships, but also have a common foundation of knowledge from which to interact. And so we're going to be organizing the induction into the collector's room through cohorts, where you'll come in, you'll join. There's going to be a specific calendar. Every week we'll look at a new chapter. We'll have our master class with our guest star, but you'll have the opportunity on the forum, but also on the video calls to interact with it. You won't be sitting in a lecture hall with 2,000 people, right? You'll be with a smaller group and having this shared learning experience that experience shows, and our experts tell us, creates longer lasting relationships, more affinity, better contacts. And often these cohorts will have their own reunions. You'll have your own room, discussion room on the forum. So we really believe this idea of coming in together, sharing a learning experience, sharing an interaction experience is going to be really valuable to you as a member of the collector's room.
Yeah. And Gary, I think that both you and I can agree that over the next coming weeks, we're going to have a lot of exciting things lined up, master classes, discussions, the forum, our new home. But I think it's time that we talk about, for the people interested, how do they sign up, and maybe also revealing who our guest host is.
Okay, so get ready. We're live today. I'm a big fan of instant gratification. Uh, it seems a while since you could actually go into a watch store and buy the watch you wanted. But that can be fun, right? Waiting lists being what they are and all the rest. But so we're not going to make you wait. So immediately you can enroll. You get access to the first chapter of the educational course, which is a little bit about the collector's room. You'll see, a couple of slides that may look familiar from today's webinar, but not too much of that. But really, it's about why watches. What is it about watches? What is it about timekeeping? Why does it merit our interest? Why should we collect watches? And a brief history of watchmaking and of the watch hobby and of watch markets. So that's the first chapter, and you'll have immediate access to the forum. We've already pre-populated that with a few posts and examples of how it works, and you'll see it. Weekly, there will be access to each of the subsequent 4 chapters, and those are chapter 2 is about building a collection. What is a collection? What does it mean to be a collector? How can I think about it? What dimensions do people use to around which to build a collection? How do I do it? How do I come up with a set of watches that's really meaningful for me? How do I think about adding an individual watch to my collection? How do I build a portfolio view of looking across? Does it make sense? So that's chapter 2. Chapter 3, we get into the financial stuff, right? How do watch markets work? How do cycles in watch pricing work? Are watches an investment? If I'm going to put money into watches, what should my expectations be? Are there certain strategies? If I do want to think about maybe not making money, maybe making money, maybe not losing a lot of money by buying watches, what are those strategies? What painful lessons have some of us who've been at this for a while learned? That's the third chapter. Chapter 4, more details. How to be a smart buyer and seller, right? How to buy, where to buy, under what circumstances to buy. Same with selling, do's and don'ts. How to decide which channel to buy through, how to maximize what you get or minimize what you pay, and how to understand what your watch is really worth. And then coming full circle, chapter 5, building your network, how to be an effective member of the collector's room community, how to build your network outside of the collector's room with other people in the industry, makers, manufacturers, and so on. So in five chapters, I'm going to tell you everything I know about watch collecting. Maybe not everything, because that would take another 3 minutes. But in any case, a lot, and based on experience and some happy experiences and some painful ones. Also, some guidance from our advisory group. We had them contribute their kind of do's and don'ts and success and failure stories as well. So that's the content. We do have already specific dates set out for cohort videos. So our weekly discussions, again, focused on each chapter. We're not going to review the content of the chapter. We're going to get right into having discussions with the group about what you saw. We'll propose some discussion questions, but we're going to let the group drive how those unfold. October 4th is our inaugural masterclass. I'm really, really happy to say that Stephen Forsey has agreed to join us for that. To the extent that you know of Stephen, he's a fantastic guy. He knows everything about the history of timekeeping. We're going to, at this point, the idea is to ask him focus on a watchmaker's view of collectors, which should be pretty interesting. It's not a topic I've heard a lot of watchmakers talk about. I'm sure he'll be pretty forthright with us, but that's going to be a wonderful, wonderful hour. And I think, as you think about the value of being a member here, that kind of thing, I would put very high on the list, right? That it's not just it's not just a forum, even though the forum is really dynamic, right? It's not just text, right? It's text, it's photos, it's links to photos, it's links to your Instagram, it's videos, it's links to your videos, other people's videos, emojis. You can throw GIFs on, you can do whatever. That's great. It's regular video interactions with the other members, but very importantly, it's, hey, we get to sit down with Stephen Forsey and hear from him and ask him questions. If you wanted to have a small group meeting with Stephen Forsey, how would you do it? Where would you start? Could you even, for a lot of us, well, certainly for me, even a few years ago, that would have been a fantasy. So to be able to do it at all, and say, okay, great, now we're going to get on a plane, we're going to go to Switzerland, we're going to drive out to Chaux de Fonds, get a hotel room. I mean, you get the idea, right? The masters come to you in this format, and we're really, really happy about that. And then the plan at this point is sometime in early November is to follow up with the next master class. Members of each cohort will be invited to that, but it's that kind of rich content that's going to be available to you for joining. And here's the introductory offer, right? So to enroll in the first cohort, it's $129. You get a lot of stuff with that. I won't repeat that long list I just said, luckily for all of us. But you do get 45 days free membership in the forum. That's not coincidental, right? It's going to take us about 6 weeks, including the masterclass week, to work through the 5 chapters as a group. So you'll have complimentary access to the forum, your cohort room, all the other discussion parts of the forum for the full period of the course before you decide on proceeding with the monthly recurring membership. So you get access to everything TCR, all the discussions, all the master classes. And then after that, the recurring membership is $39 a month. There is no minimum required membership length. There is no small print. There is no, gee, I'm really sorry, you signed up for a 10-year term, right? None of that stuff. We're all going to be friends here. And we are confident that once you're in, you're going to find enough value that you're going to want to continue to opt in. That's strictly at your option. So that's the overview. That's the offer. Oliver, why don't you tell people specifically about how they're going to sign up?
Yes, all right. Basically, it's a 2-step process. So just in a minute here, I will share my screen. This is our new home. Of course, it's private until you sign up for the 45-day free trial. So what you do is you click this button right here, and then you'll go ahead and choose new user, sign up. And here you can put in your full name. You can also put in your first name or a different screen name. That is going to be your username. Also, put in your email, put in your password that you would like to have. And I'm just gonna sign in really quick. Afterwards, you will be redirected to our home. This is where everything's going to be going on. So that was the first step of the process. Secondly, you would like to go to learning. And here we have the TCR 5-chapter course. So what you do is you go ahead and you opt in here, and you'll be added to the first cohort, or we'll start all of the cohorts as soon as we can. And yeah, that's basically the way that you are opting in for the collector's room. And so I see we have a lot of questions. How many people are in a cohort, Gary? We're getting the first question from Rick.
Aha, great. Maximum of 100. And I think we'll hold to that because we think it's important from the educational experience. I mean, the good news is that to the extent that we get a huge amount of demand, we won't wait 6 weeks to launch cohort 2. We'll run them contemporaneously. So we could within a week, let's call it, start up cohort 2. And so the members of cohort 2 and cohort 3, I'm the eternal optimist, we'll all have access to the Forsey session and all the other stuff. But in terms of the weekly conversations of the educational materials, you'll have your own private sessions with your cohort. We'll just run those at different times of day or on different days of the week.
All right. Next question. Does the monthly membership include the course, or is this a la carte?
The course membership includes the forum. Yeah, there's not at this point an option just to join the forum. We believe that it's really important to get everyone through the content of the initial educational piece, to get people in a cohort together and to have that shared learning. So the entry point is through the course. Maybe at some point, we'll change that, but we think it's important enough to combine the educational and community aspects of the collector's room that the entry point is at this point through the course.
All right. Next question. Will we be able to see who the other members are? And will there be an option to do private DMs?
Well, you'll be able to see who the members are to the extent that they identify themselves by name. So yes, as with other forums, you'll see the names of people post. One thing, and it's in, I think, even the first chapter of the educational materials, is that we really encourage transparency. And transparency as a value for all of us in our interactions, but also we'd really, really like people to use their real names if you're at all comfortable with that. It's not mandatory because we also respect people's privacy. So transparency balanced with privacy. If you really, really don't want to be known, we understand that, but we encourage you to use your real names. I'm not quite sure on the DMs. Oliver, do you have an answer to that?
No, currently that's not a functionality, but I was speaking with the developers the other day, and that's something that we're going to be having quite shortly. As you said, it's something that we develop all the time, and that is something that is on the drawing board. All right, next questions. Are cohorts geographically based?
That's a great question. We've been thinking about that, and certainly from a meeting time perspective, it would be easier, right? Because even now, in Asia, it's the middle of the night, which I feel bad about, but there's really not a great way to have a global interaction. You can do 5 a.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern, in the afternoon in Europe and late at night in Asia, which we may end up doing. But by the same token, I think diversity in the cohorts is important. So we may, we're going to have to find our own way on that. I think we'd love your comments on that. My personal bias would be for diversity over logistical ease. But to the extent that people say, great, diversity is a great principle, but I'm not getting up at that hour, then we're not going to destroy value. So I think we'll look for logical groupings. To the extent that we could do, Americas and Europe, and then, Europe, Middle East, and Asia, that might be a way of organizing the group so that the meeting times are more convenient for people. And then looking for ways to have these, master classes, which are for everybody at hours that are convenient, as convenient as we can make it for everyone. The other thing is we'll record everything, and the content will be available. The downside is you don't get to ask your live questions, if you can't make it. But there's no need to miss out on that. I hope that speaks to your question.
All right, next question is your plan to keep everything online, or will there be any in-person meetups in the future?
Maybe. My guess is that that's going to be done through partners. There's actually another group of folks who are starting up an in-person meetup operation that they're good friends of mine, and I've been talking with them a little bit. That might be a way of connecting. You can never tell. I just think of the logistics of being a meeting organizer, and let's just put it, I'm not going to be organizing the meetups, but that doesn't mean that we can't have somebody. I wouldn't say no. And again, education and community, right? And even for those of us who started communicating on the forums 20 years ago, you know, to meet in person those people that you wrote to in Singapore or Santiago or Oslo, you know, or Dubai in person, it's a wonderful experience. So I think not in the immediate plan, but would certainly consider it.
All right. Will the video meetings of world-class speakers be recorded in case we will not be available, or will the video meetings of world-class speakers be recorded in case you're not available when it is live?
That's the plan. It's with their consent. So there may be, you know, someone who says, geez, I don't want to be recorded. I just want to talk live. I understand people might be sensitive to that. By and large, we're requesting and strongly recommending to folks that they allow us to record those sessions so that they are available. And then they'd be available on the forum for people to see. The middle ground might be, there might be some people say, yes, you know, you can record it and do 1 or 2 rebroadcasts. So we're working hard to make sure that that content's available to everybody at times that are convenient for you.
Yes. Next question is from Rick. Like, what tier level is this course? Is it geared more toward experienced collectors? He says some of the class content seems more elementary.
We've done our best to try to span across, and you know, if you're really, you know, if you're you know, Ara Montanari, chances are you're not going to hear a lot that's completely novel to you. But even when it comes to talking about the history of watch markets, how watch markets work, and all the rest, you know, our hope is that there's enough novel in there from our experiences and my personal experience that you'll find it interesting. And I think there's enough new that I'd learn something, you know, if it were someone else saying the same stuff I just said. Yeah, I think that certainly there's a lot in there for newer collectors in the course. But I think there are things, particularly in stimulating your thoughts and enabling you to be, as a more experienced person, to be a great contributor to your cohort. There's a lot in there. And to give a context for, you know, what are newer collectors thinking about, and what of my own experience can I share with them, right? So if I get on my cohort call and someone says, geez, you know, I saw this thing and I was a little confused by it, or is that really true? You have a real opportunity to, you know, to kind of pay it forward, right? To bring newer people to the hobby, into the hobby, and ensure that it's a rich and highly populated group of folks going into the future.
Yeah. How will members introduce themselves to the community? Through the usual forum self-introductory post or any other format? Also, will these contents be forum-wide or cohort-wide?
Good questions. And I have to write it down because, you know, again, I can only think of one thing at a time. It will be the, you know, the typical introduce yourself. However, you'll be able to include photographs, video, you know, a variety of ways of doing it. So if you want to do a quick video that says, hey, here's who I am, and look, you know, here's the watch I've got, and it's kind of cool, and, you know, I live in such and such, that's great. If you want to do it in text, that's fine. But that'll be available on, we have actually an introductions page on the site, so that you can go there, and also within your cohort, you can do that. And you're not required to do it both places. Certainly within the cohort page, you know, we'd like you to do it there. And to the extent you're more comfortable just doing it in that smaller group, that's fantastic. But if you'd like to introduce yourself to the broader community, that's great too. And you can do it at any time.
Yeah. I think this is a very interesting question, the next one. As someone within the industry itself already with a decent amount of knowledge, what value do you think the collector's room would have for me?
Well, as an individual, I think it's just fun to get to know people and to hear what they're thinking. I think certainly the you know, to the extent that you don't have access to some of the folks that we're going to have as our guest stars, that can be fun.
I think in your professional role, having access to a group of people who are enthusiastic and committed and willing to pay a few dollars a month to be involved in this community. It's an extremely useful population for you to get to know and to understand and to understand what they're thinking about and how sentiment is shifting among collectors and the collector community, both experienced and new collectors. And if I, now I'm really going to climb out of the end of the limb, to the extent that you are in a marketing role in your organization as a professional, having the opportunity to get access to a self-selected group of enthusiasts who are likely customers. And I think, there's I will say there's more merit for people in the industry than for collectors. I think that it's actually the opposite, because this really is about collectors to the extent that folks who are in the industry want to participate in that dialogue and to contribute to it. That's the thing. The last question and this question, I think, to me, it's as much about giving as taking. Right? We're in this together, and I think to the extent the more experienced folks help the newer folks, that's fantastic. And there's a real opportunity there for you.
Yes, I think we have about 5 minutes left, so we'll just pick up on the last few questions. I'm sorry, everybody, we can't get through all of them, but feel free to post also in the community or send us an email and we'll get through all of them. But the next question is it totally online for a cohort, or is there going to be some offline communication included? This person is not in the US.
Offline communication. Well, Oliver, can you help me with that? How do you read that?
Yeah, I think I read that. Is it only going to be live communication? So on a meeting? So for example, with the time differences?
Yeah, I think, well, again, we're going to record everything. There'll be an opportunity, when we post it, there will be a discussion topic about it. So there are those kind of asynchronous, if that's what the question is, where I wasn't able to join live, but I saw this and this is what I thought, what did you hear in the session or whatever. So I think yes. And we're going to do our best to schedule things so more people can actually join. But yeah, I mean, we don't want everything to, I mean, it's kind of the fun part of it, right? We don't want everything just to be, I've got this long stream of posts on my WhatsApp group. And if I want to see something, that someone posted a little while, I can't find it. I'm scrolling all over. We don't want it just to be this flat time divorced medium. And we don't just want it to be a live real-time medium. So we're going to try to take the best of both and put them together.
Yes. Hello, I'm in Europe, 9 hours off California, and I'm 9 hours off as well. I'm also in Europe. Will the courses be always at the same time / weekday? I'm sure many people are all over the world, and I think I can actually answer that question. What we're going to do is we're going to release the chapters week by week, so you can actually watch the course content at your own pace. So if you have Monday or Wednesday, whenever it suits you, and then we'll get together on the group meeting and we'll discuss some few of the points that was being discussed in the course. So you can watch it at your own time. Also, the meetings with the group, as you said, Gary, is going to be recorded so that you can watch it back if you're not there live. That answers the next question. Will classes be recorded in case you're unable to attend live? And yes, they will.
Yeah, just to be clear, yeah, Oliver says that the chapters are already recorded. And so those will be posted and you can watch through them, and they're divided into sub-chapters. They're, fairly bite-sized. These are not 9-hour lectures. Thank goodness for all of us. We try to hit the key points and get in and out. But those are not live presentations, and our discussion calls are not going to be presentations. They're going to be discussions of the material that you've covered at your own pace that week.
All right, last question. How many people will be in a cohort, Gary?
Maximum of 100.
Yes, that's going to be the final remarks. Thank you very much, everybody. Gary, as you're the main host, I'll leave the final round off words to you. And also thank you for a great event.
Well, Oliver, thank you very much for all your contributions. I'm sure some of the members of our advisory group are lurking on here. And thank you to you for the tremendous value you've added so far. And thanks to everyone for joining today, for staying, for considering joining up. We're looking forward to having you in the collector's room. It's going to be a great journey, and it's going to be based on you and your interests and your enthusiasm. So I'm really looking forward to taking that trip with you. Thanks.